Start the morning right with a cup of Vinyl Tap. Nothing beats the refreshing taste of a hot, warm mug of Vinyl Tap. Enjoy your podcast in liquid form today. Vinyl Tap. Enjoy responsibly.
2, 1.
Vinyl Tap.
Vinyl Tap.
Vinyl Tap.
I'm Jason.
I'm Jason.
I'm Jason.
I am Jason.
And we just listened to Beach House Devotion. I'm very excited to hear what everyone's thoughts on this are. Babes, let's start with you.
My thoughts. Okay, well, I don't mind dream pop. I've sort of recently been getting into kind of shoegaze dream pop recently. Like maybe the last 2 months or so, I've been listening to it pretty heavily.
What bands?
This album, though, I have no idea. I've just let Spotify take the wheel, and I just listen to them, and I don't pay attention.
Cool.
Yeah, so I haven't come across any of these songs. I don't think I've come across this band either. Like, yeah, some of it was good, and some of it was trash, and I hated it. That's my summary.
Cool. Andrew, general thoughts?
Songs had interesting things. I didn't mind the album. I wasn't in love with it. I thought there was some cool drum beats that were interesting for a bit, then got a bit repetitive. There was cool sort of slide guitar stuff that was, I enjoyed, and generally like the ethereal kind of dream pop style. You know, it's good to listen to. It's not offensive music to your ears. Like, you're not going to hear something that's like really off and left of center that's going to be too jarring. So I can't. Yeah.
Fair enough. Tim?
Maybe I was just in the right mood for this, but I really, really liked this album beginning to end. There was nothing that I hated at all. I really enjoyed it. Mainly, we'll get into it.
Yeah, cool. I've not listened to Beach House. That's a lie. I've listened to, is it Cherry Depression, I think it is? Whatever their red cover album is, start to end, because Harry, old housemate, used to really love this band, but I've not listened to Devotion start to end, and I'm with Tim. I liked it start to end.
Right.
Does anyone have a song they'd really want to talk about and start with, or something that they thought was their favorite or their least favorite?
I think the middle was definitely stacked with the songs that I liked the most. I guess I'll get straight into what I didn't like about this, and what I sort of thought, how it started and how it kind of ended had these elements that I didn't like. Where is it? So just the first song, Wedding Bell, like there's some really nice things going on with like the snare at the start with that brush pattern, and how it panned from left to right was like a super cool effect. And that kind of, they had that production all the way through, but they just had so much complexity in terms of, like, I get the wall of sound is a thing that's part of this genre, but they had like, it was almost like 4 or 5 competing melodic lines, and it was just so much thrown at you that you couldn't listen to any distinct line anymore, and so it just became a fat mess that you couldn't enjoy.
It's about the texture.
100% disagree. I had the complete opposite experience. I thought that it was extremely clear which line was which, and I could hone in on whatever I wanted to. I thought it was really well EQ'd in that regard.
I'm going to argue as well that that's part of it, is having so many things, and it's all about the way the textures interact and like chop and change throughout the song, and having different lines that can be the main line at different points throughout the song.
Yeah. So, sorry, Andy, I'm just going to go die on this hill.
Keep going.
It was EQ'd really well, and I do think that there's meant to be like different lines that you can listen to, but it's sort of like other songs, there are clear moments where there's a counter melody going, there's the main sort of ethereal vocals, there's a backing sort of, the Casio's laying down the fat synth lines, there's a bass, and they're all EQ beautifully, and you can hear it all distinctly, and it's nice. This was like literally 3 or 4 competing counter melodies.
Do you mean this particular
And-
song?
Yeah, in this
Okay,
particular
okay.
song especially, and it comes up a couple of times throughout. I think I don't know how to say it. Gila had it. In fact, just the first sort of Gila.
Goyla?
Gila.
Goyla.
Yeah, again, like actually just sort of the first 5 songs and then the last couple all sort of just had that same thing. But Wedding Bells especially just, I thought there were so many melodies going on that were like counter melodies trying to support, and I couldn't actually listen into one because it was just, there was another one there that, you know, and then another one there. Like this.
With Wedding Bell, I had different problems. I didn't find that was too bad with it. I liked the song in general. I thought, you know, it was sort of, I didn't know that this was dream pop. What is it? Dream
Pop.
pop?
Dream pop.
Yeah, going into it.
Dream gaze, shoe pop.
Yeah.
I mean,
With like, you know, that transcendental, like ethereal music. And I didn't really know that. So the first sort of comments I started to make that was like this interesting mix of folk and Beatles sound. I got like a very Yellow Submarine sound on the first song.
Interesting.
And that's what I didn't like that much of. It was very just sort of just sitting in this pulse, very like unmoving and unenergetic. And I get that that's kind of the music, but also it wasn't doing anything with that. Also, the choice of organ sound for the first song, was it like semi harpsichord-esque? Like,
Yes.
I think there's
Synth.
harpsichord all throughout this album.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nah. That didn't do it to me. That clashed. We had like this. I really enjoyed the surf. So like in songs, they would have a difference between like a clean guitar sound and like a surf rock sound, and then they would have, you know, a bit of just, you know, like a dirtier sound at times on the guitar, and then you had this harpsichord sound, and I was just like, no, please take it away. Yeah, and
Pretty
so
sure
was
the
it
harpsichord sound was done by a Casio tone, because I heard the
Okay.
distinct samba rhythm happen. Yeah, you come to me. The second song is like
The 332, yeah.
Oh yeah, that Casio tone like drum beat is used in so many different songs.
I didn't mind that. Was that it hit on beat 1, 2, and 4, 2,
Yes.
and 3,
Yeah,
and
it
it was like on a 2-bar low.
I
I didn't hate it though. Like I thought in that song I recognized I couldn't pick where it was from, and I wrote it down and I was like, what is this rhythm and why have I heard it? But it kind of suited the song though. I spent most of that song just listening to that beat, being like, where is this from? Why do I know this? And yeah.
Yeah, and so if that's what you disliked, what did you like then, Beebs?
So I'm actually going to jump off that Beatles comment. There are some really nice, almost like Beatle-esque chord progressions and melodies. And like, there's something about a really simple melody, really dreamy, heaps of reverb, gorgeous harmonies, just floating over a really nice kind of
Ethereal sound.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then throw in a
Yeah.
harpsichord and ruin
Chord
everything. Yeah,
progressions that
continue.
just float. They just drift and keep going. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
This album is so harmonically
Pleasant.
particular. It's lovely. It's so good. Every progression sounds very deliberate, but also it's not in your face. Right? I'm not shoving my harmony down your throat. It's just present, and it's like this lake that the rest of the music just floats across. I think it's beautiful. There's so much clever shit going on in the harmony. And like, maybe because I was listening solely to the harmony, that's why I enjoyed this so much and couldn't pick out any of the issues you guys have. But that was my experience. There was so much cool harmony going on here. I was particularly astounded by Some Things That Last a Long Time, the 8th song, that was written pretty much entirely in E Phrygian.
Can we pause on the harmony for 2 seconds and come back to that? On Some Things Last a Long Time, I love the irony of it being the shortest song on
I
the
hated
album.
that.
2 minutes 20 or whatever. Yeah,
I really
kinda
wanted
liked
that song to go for longer.
I did as well, but I enjoy the irony of the title versus the length of the song and it being the shortest song. But yeah,
Actually, yeah, I really loved that it was so short because that chord progression and that melody, I think you can find elsewhere. Like, it's already been done to death, that kind of... it's almost like a distinctive sound, and I'll get back to you on the fourth episode. I'll track down a bunch of songs that I've been listening to that are almost exactly the same in terms of its melody, um, and the harmony, but it kind of didn't do what everybody else does. It just sort of cut it short. Um, didn't really resolve in a satisfying way. It just drifts into its own thing. I thought that was such a
Well,
good,
I feel like a
strong
lot of
point
the
for
other
it.
songs on this album could have benefited from that treatment as well then, because probably the one complaint I have about the album across the board is that the songs kind of overstay their welcome a little bit. Except for that one. But that was the one I wanted to go for longer.
The sweet irony.
Yeah.
All right, we've done a lot of talking. Jason, come on. I know you're a fan of this. So
For the most part.
did this tick all the boxes for this genre?
Who's tickling boxes?
I don't really know if it ticked all the boxes. I don't know if I have a preference when it comes to this genre. I'm not super well versed in it, but I just love the texture that happens in this sort of genre, and the way that it can. Where's a song that it really does it in? Something like Heart of Chambers, where it uses texture to make the chorus really big and thick and full. And so it kind of increases in intensity without needing to change the rhythm or the mood, but just shifting between different tones or timbres on instruments and
Yeah.
different amounts of instruments
pick
being
up-
in and out. It like really...
Did you pick out what was happening with the guitar there?
No, only that I loved the distorted guitar riff that they had there. Besides that, I didn't really think about what it was doing. What?
Well, there was like they had. It must have been just an amp setting. Like they had it so basically when they played more intense, the amp would crunch. And as
Oh,
they
okay,
played
like a
sort
gate.
of- right, like a gate, and it just like you're saying, that transition from clean tone to crunch was nothing to do with volume and all to do with must have been the way that like the intensity that it was played.
Yeah, and it's the same as like I really enjoyed. I felt like that was the song that had probably like the cleanest, punchiest drums. Like they weren't as muted as what they were in other songs. Not that they weren't present in the other songs. And also, I think I tended to enjoy the songs that had cleaner vocals, like weren't as breathy. And I know that breathy vocals is like a very big like trope of this genre, but I think a lot of the stronger songs on this album were the ones where they had the cleaner vocals and the harmonies were kind of breathier.
Yep.
But yeah, just not just like that song kind of typifies the textural changes, but they did it all throughout the album where different instruments will come in or out to make it thicker or thinner and kind of change the intensity of it and the tone of it without really like having to write a completely different section as to what was already going on, which kind of adds to that floating along effect because nothing's really sort of changing, but it is, if that makes sense.
You could say though that it, you might listen to this with a different set of ears and say that nothing changes at all, right? Because it's kind of the same instrumentation from beginning
Yeah.
to end. There is no drop in, drop out. It's subtle changes.
Yeah, it's not the sort of music I think, at least personally, that you'd sit down and listen to like we just did. It's the kind of really nice, I want to lie down and like read a book with some music on, or I want to do something with this on in the background, or you just really want something to kind of lie down and zone out to and not have to engage with it too much to understand what's going on. Like it's just really almost like comforting and soothing in a way with the way that it's just so ethereal and floating. Like, you know, it's the kind of thing I imagine people would love getting high to and listening to. And like I've actually been to a Beach House concert, and the way that because some of their later stuff is like heavier and more intense than this, and the way that the light shows the lighting synced up with the changing of the drums and the textures was just like next level. Like it wasn't just very stereotypical lighting. It was like the lighting show was as much a part of the music as what, any of the instruments or synth sounds were.
Right. Is that something that's a part of this genre?
Not that I'm aware of. It might be, but it also might not be. But it's just something that really stood out to me when I saw them live.
Light shows accompanying ethereal music has been a thing since like Laser Floyd in the late 70s.
Yeah.
So like you can see the roots of it. And I think that like historically descending from a Pink Floyd kind of, bed of sound that just takes you away and it's nice to get high to and melt into the carpet or whatever, that kind of idea. I feel like it's a continuation of that spirit of music, not necessarily the same genre or like any particular element of music, but I feel like the idea is there.
Yeah, right. So if you're going to listen to this right, you're really going to have to put on a light show and get
In your
room
bedroom.
with your disco effects, right?
While you're going to sleep.
Smoke machine.
'Cause-
Yeah. Smoke machine.
It
Whether
works.
you are the smoke machine, it doesn't really matter. It's just as long as it's happening.
The other thing that's kind of like scattered throughout the album that I really enjoyed, it's something I don't really have a term for, and I was trying to figure out with Tim how to voice it, but I think it's just going to have to be a discussion, is they do this thing where different instruments are rhythmically moving at different paces within the same song, but they're still in time. So in Astronaut is a nice example where like the drums are kind of moving in sixteenths, and then you've got synths that are either holding for a whole bar
Or pulsing in
or
quavers.
pulsing in quavers.
Eighths, I guess.
Yeah, or eighths. And so they're
Right.
kind of like happening at the same time. And so they're all in time, but things are moving at a different rate.
Right, so it kind of like sounds fractally because like it just gets thinner and thinner the more you delve into it. Like there's this depth
Right.
of sound to the way that instruments rhythmically pulsed.
And yeah, I don't really know if there's a word for that, but it's like they have like obviously the long drones, but then over the top of that, they have the different instruments moving at different rhythms, and it just creates this really full effect even when there's only like 2 or 3 things playing.
It's a particularly it's an effect used in a lot of minimalist music. I think Philip Glass does that a lot. And
I feel like it's sort of with the Philip Glass as well. I agree. I felt this, especially in like the first couple of songs. I found this really heavily, that you had like the harpsichord or the guitar playing in quite a heavy, like 16th note or semiquavers, kind of thing. And then once you broke it down, you might have had another guitar or a bass sort of like going in crotchets, and then you had the chords just changing every bar almost, or every 2 bars at times. And I reckon, and then with the drums being quite slow as well, your heart almost sinks with the lowest common denominator, like that slow feel, and that's why you don't get that high energy. And it's the same with minimalist music. Philip Glass captures like cityscapes and things, and you're still feeling slow. Like,
but there's so much
you're
going
feeling
on.
like every. Yeah, and I think you're right. I really agree that this effect is quite strong in the music, and it's really interesting to listen to. And I think they've really done a good job of capturing that, so that you can sit down and listen to it. Because if the whole piece was 16th notes and you tried to sit down and go to sleep to listening to it,
Good
it
luck.
just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
it
if
would be
there's
too
a genuine
complex.
academic term for this effect, but the best I came up with was like layered rhythmic diminution, which I think describes basically what's
Very
going on.
minimalist. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they used the effect really nicely in All the Years, and I think it was, to me, it sounded like there was I think it was a sleigh bell, or I don't know, a percussionist can correct me there, but it's, and it's kind of, I think it's keeping the 16ths or something, but it sounds like a clock ticking. It's sort of pulled back in the EQ, so it was like it's almost like a ticking effect, and I thought it went really nicely just in terms of like the theme of the song. All the years they're sort of talking about time and the time passing, and I just thought like, I don't know.
It's
super,
interesting
super cool
that I
just
brought
to
up
kind
Pink Floyd earlier because they did the exact same thing on Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
Wait, all
I
the years for a second. Okay. my least favorite song on the album, and that was like, so I get everything you said, maybe more interested in the song, having heard you say it. The reason I hated it was, the chord change was so far back on the beat. It happened every bar, like it was a chord change every bar or whatever, and it was happening so far back that it felt like we weren't going to get there every time, and I just felt like just saying like, just get it out of there and play the fucking chord, and we just need to progress because it was just going so slow.
I can see
And
how
I
that
don't
would
think
be
there was no.
frustrating, but it's still a cool effect.
It is a cool effect, and that's why I liked with everything Habibi
Yeah.
said just then. I was like, actually, I like the song a bit more just now. Listening to it though, I was like, this is my least
No, you're
favorite song.
absolutely right, and that's actually how I like tuned into listening to that, because I was like listening to these chords drag on, and I was like exactly that. The chords dragged and dragged, and then my ears were like, yeah, but something here is driving. Like, what is pulling me forward? And then it just like clicked, and you can just hear it just. And as soon as you notice that, it just locks in really tight.
But that's
I'll listen to it again.
That's somewhat how most of the album works. They've got these long, drony sort of chords that seem like they're not going to end, but the perpetual motion moving forwards really comes from the like steadiness of the like drum samples, of like it just being super repetitive and just there kind of ticking along, moving it forwards while other stuff feels like it's trying to pull back and slow it down.
It kind of captures how time feels in real life, man. How it's like, in the moment it's like, when will it ever end? But then at the same time it's like, oh, it's moving so fast. Where did the time go? But also
that was amazing.
Every moment is so lingering. I don't know.
That's deep, man.
Getting very deep on this. What did everyone think of song order and as like a cohesive album?
I really love transitions between songs. They were fantastic throughout the album. Andrew has a quizzical look on his face.
Andrew,
You look like you're about to go and die on a hill over there. Go forth.
I will. I look, to be honest, I towards the end, I agree completely. I think the last couple of transitions were fantastic. We had like Astronaut into, what's the name of the last? I can't read my handwriting. What's the name of the last song?
D.A.R.L.I.N.G.
No, Darling was the second last song, and Home Again was the last
Well, they
song.
said Astronaut to Darling, and then...
Sorry, it was Astronaut to Darling. It was like these, I don't know, I listened to this on YouTube, so I had the film clip, and this was the only film clip that played, and this was like, I don't know, did everyone else's end with Konnichiwa right at the end of the song, and then went into the next song?
No.
Oh, so there was like these
That must be a music
weird
video
effects.
thing.
Okay. And the transition was fantastic, though, because it went straight into the next one, which continued on from like this sort of sounds of the city kind of thing. And it was really interesting listening to that. I thought that transition and the music continued and really suited what we were listening to. And it was a weird video clip. And it was the only video clip that actually played. The others were just the album picture. Right. And it was a weird time. But no, the actual transition, I agree, was very well done. Earlier on, though, I thought the transitions, because the songs were so similar in a lot of aspects, it was like I couldn't tell when the new song had started. And I get that could be a good transition, but at the same time, if there's no contrast to the next song, apart from like the tiniest tempo change and no timbral real difference, apart from maybe, a sleigh bell comes in, and that doesn't even come in straight away. And I was kind of like, is this just one long slog that I'm going to have to sit through? But no, look, I did enjoy the album, but it was just, the transitions weren't something that did it for me.
Babes?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the transitions were good for exactly the same reason that Andrew just said that they weren't great. Because, like, for me, this music would sound a bit odd if the song kind of just ended and then went into the next thing. Like, I think it really suited the album to just drift along, although it did feel a bit sludgy. As an album, I don't know, I didn't think there was any particular story or anything like that to this. Ooh. I just kind of started off a bit weak for me, it ended weak, and the middle was stacked with some really good shit. Right.
Before I get on to the whole disagreeing about a story, I agree with you on the transitions. Like, it suits the style of music. If they had like definitive ends and then definitive starts, it didn't kind of blur the lines a bit. It'd take you out of that mood that it kind of
I
puts
have one
across the
question
song.
at the end of your statement.
Okay.
I have one question at the end.
And they did this really nice thing because none of the songs really had fade outs on them until Home Again as the last song on the album.
Yeah.
Which I think was
the
a
first
really...
one had a fade out.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm about to put my foot in my mouth then. But I was going to say it was a nice touch that it like faded out at the last song because it kind of kept that idea that it could keep going as opposed to having a definitive end even at the end of the album. So like while they kind of bled into each other throughout the album, the resolve to that at the end of like fading out, I think was a nice touch. Andrew, question?
Do you think this genre of music suits albums?
Ooh.
Like with any genre of music, I think it depends on the band and what they do with it. Because you could have a bunch of songs that are incoherent with each other and fill an album, or you could have something... Because we've been talking about Pink Floyd, Dark Side, the way that it runs into each song and as a like whole experience is just wonderful. So I don't see why you couldn't do something to that effect in this genre because of the way that it works. So I think it comes down to musical choices as a band, and it's not to do with the genre or the format of an album, if that makes sense.
I would delve into a philosophical argument with you there about that, because I'd say that some genres do tend towards albums more than others. And it is still up to the idiosyncrasies of a certain band and what they're doing with their music, but I think that some genres, albums make more sense than others.
Such as?
I mean, we'll talk about it later, man. We don't have time for this.
Okay. Something for... another time, I guess. But yeah, I also felt that this one did have a bit of a story to it. Like, I think the song order did matter. And I know that you just said you didn't think that, Beebs, but especially if you look at the track titles, you know, for me, it kind of started off with someone like getting married. And then after a bit of time, things weren't necessarily going well. They started to go their own ways and explore a bit, and then at the end they kind of
Somebody went into space. That's how far they
exactly
explored.
and then
Turtle Island.
Soul searching so far, you end up in the Orion belt
with turtles.
But you know, and then by the end of it all, they were like Home Again is kind of like what I thought, but apparently I'm dying on this hill by myself.
It's a loose connection.
I see how you can do that with the track titles, but the thing was, musically, there was no story there.
It wasn't really a journey. It was like a plane of music, which is fine.
It was pleasant. Yeah. It was pleasant to listen to, but it just happened. It wasn't like it took me from here to there.
Direction, really.
And I think it sort of comes from, again, we sort of touched on this, the lack of really distinct contrasts. It was very much... the instrumentation at the beginning was there right through to the
songs
end.
didn't
and
really
like say,
climax in any generic way.
Right. And then when it sort of fades out, it could just continue to go on. Maybe there's something to say about like life just goes on.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be pushing it.
Like maybe we're just viewing each song as like a window. We're just traveling past, drifting on by, and we're looking at it like a tourist going through this dream pop land. Anyway, we should start wrapping up.
Yeah, I if you want some really nice background music that just kind of is there to comfort and support you, then dream pop, this album, but dream pop in general is a really nice genre to kind of unwind to. Click above to find out what else we've talked about in this theme.
Click above to see other things